Hey everyone, Jeff here, also known as the Revit Kid. Welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark live. This is actually episode 52. We've got a special guest, and we're going to be talking about Revit 2022. I think we're going to look at it from a little bit of a different perspective. I'm sure by now you've seen all the posts, the blog posts and videos about all the new features and listing all the features, which is great. I think we're going to take a little bit of a different approach. I think you're going to appreciate the perspective, and I hope you enjoy. For those of you who are new here, thank you for joining today. I appreciate it. Actually, before I forget, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. We're actually 100 subscribers short of 40,000. So it'd be pretty cool if during this live stream we hit 40,000. That'd be pretty sweet. I don't know what we'll do, but I think it'd be pretty cool. Before I introduce my guest, as usual, I wanted to thank our sponsor for today's show, which is BIMbox. For those of you not familiar with BIMbox, they create desktops and laptops for the AEC industry. More importantly, ones that are designed and optimized for Revit specifically. A couple great things about BIMbox is they have a 3-year warranty on all their boxes. They ship and deliver any machine in 10 to 14 days. And I was told that I can talk a little bit about a new desktop that they've got coming out soon. And it's going to be at what they call a mid-price range. So for those of you who maybe have gone over there and said you're not ready to invest in a workstation desktop, but you really want the power, they've got a really sweet box. It looks slick. It's got some serious power. So check them out. If you are interested, make sure you head on over to bimbox.bimafterdark.com, or you can email sales@bimboxusa.com. Say that you saw them here. Thank them for sponsoring the show every week. Every month for the past 52 episodes, which is pretty wild. And yeah, so with that, what I'd like to do is introduce my guest today, friend of the show and AEC connoisseur, Aaron Mahler. What's up, man? All right, let me make sure. I think I might have muted you again. Yep, now you're good. You can say hi again. Sorry, Aaron.
Oh, hey, how's it going, everyone? No worries.
Aaron, thank you for joining us today. This is going to be awesome. I want to remind everyone, too, that we are live for this hour or so that we're here tonight. And feel free to chat, ask questions. We love interacting with you. And yeah, there's an advantage to being live, and that's you get to ask us questions directly, which is pretty sweet. So, Aaron, maybe if someone hasn't seen you on previous episodes before or doesn't know anything about you, maybe give everyone a little bit of a background on who Aaron Mahler is, why on earth you're on the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, so the background, the short version is I went to school for architecture, upstate New York, and got out of architecture school. And there was an ad in the paper, like, come learn to do some architecture in some funky software. It was Digital Project, actually, which is not Revit. But the first time I saw architecture being done by model, I was like, holy cow, we can never go back to drawing again. So I bounced around for a while using all these different BIM platforms, ArchiCAD, Vectorworks, Digital Project, and then finally I landed in Revit in 2006, and I was like, wow, this is great. But upstate New York, the economy is kind of rough, and everybody's got to be super efficient because you go over budget on one project, you're out of money. Mm-hmm. So I started really obsessing over the details and the nuances and how to be efficient in your day-to-day work, and started to just get really passionate about making Revit sing, like how to not blow 5 hours of a day doing monotonous tasks. And that meant I ended up getting kind of well known just for templates and libraries and deployments and all the unsexy stuff. I joke around with people, you like to do the sexy stuff. You got like BIM After Dark, and I'm like, hey, let me grab a broom and I'll sweep up everything else.
Yeah. Right. I'm the guy who likes to screw in every single outlet, right? That's what I like to do. Real quick, Aaron, you're still there's still a little interference. Maybe kill the mic and turn it back on or something, or switch inputs. So again, it looks like we got a couple people here joining us live, some regulars. What's up? Melissa's here from Parallax. Hey, Melissa. Revit Cat. Hey, man. Revit Cat was on an episode. Oh man, when the heck were you on, dude? A while back. I'll find the episode. Scott's here. What's up, Scott from Autodesk? How's it going, Scott Davis? A bunch of folks. I'm just delaying while Aaron fixes his mic.
All right, I've given everything a tweak. Let me...
I think it sounds better.
Okay.
The audio, the volume was fine. I was just getting that weird interference still. That's all. Yeah, I don't. Maybe it was only me. Maybe people didn't hear it. We'll see.
No, I reset it. Let me know if it isn't being funky again.
Nah, it sounds a little better now. If it keeps going, we'll roll with it. So Revit 2022. That's what we're here to talk about. I figured what we'd start with is, you and I have known each other for a while now. We chat quite a bit on and off. And I have to say that this is probably the first time in a while I felt like you were excited for Revit release. Is that true? I mean, because I mean, we've never really had this much of a discussion, offline and chatting about features. It's been years, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, so here's kind of the thing, right? Me as the user, I'm always excited because I know I'm going to upgrade all of our stuff at Parallax right away.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference between how excited I am, but then what I recommend to our customers, right? And so, of course, when you had 16, 17, 18, they were great releases, but because of the whole text issues, you were kind of telling your clients maybe not the best time to pull the trigger on upgrading an active project anyway. And 19 and 20 and 21 were all decent in their own right. But with everything going on in the world, there wasn't this mad sense of urgency. This was the first year, once the embargo was lifted, I basically emailed every one of our customers and I'm like, once this drops, get on it, because you literally as an organization can't afford to not have a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very excited. Personally.
Awesome. And on that note, the framing of sort of this discussion today is as I mentioned before, it's a different perspective. And so, I'll let you frame it if you want, but sort of the framing around this is really not necessarily just listing all the 35 new features and all the front end sexy features, but it's really the ones that you and I may look at and say, these are bottom line, improving features. And then not only that, but I think the goal today, as you and I were talking before, is really showing folks, why we think that this is such a necessary but also welcomed improvement to your workflows. And so I think I'm excited about it, and I'm hoping other people enjoy that perspective. Is that kind of what you were thinking with our discussion today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I lifted my mic up a little because a couple people said I was quiet, so hopefully that's a little better.
Awesome.
So there's a lot of features that everybody thinks like are very sexy, and they are. And I mean, like, you start talking about being able to link in Rhino files, like that's a sexy thing. And you talk about some of the other integrations that are out there, even if they're not by Autodesk, like the Rhino Inside, the stuff that Asan is doing at PyRevit. That stuff's all amazing. But there's some bread and butter features in 22 that, like, the day-to-day monotony. We have clients that are dealing with big projects. I've got one client that tells me, like, when they're printing and publishing for a deadline, like, it's a 6-hour day. Like, it's 6 hours of printing because it's a big job. And I'm like, okay.
Here's the whole day.
Really, we got to talk printing about day. That. Right. So, yeah. I mean, so I think there's a lot of features. And the ones that I'm excited to talk about are ones that, may not have the big banner, marketing or advertising wise, but I mean, they're going to return dividends, if you're a principal or if you're a project manager in a job. So those are the ones I'm excited about.
Awesome. So I think hopefully we got the volumes better for you guys. I turned up my end, Aaron turned up on his end. So it looks like to me on the level meters that were a little better. So sorry about that, guys. So I think, again, everyone out there, feel free to ask questions as we go along, and so I'll keep an eye on that. But maybe Aaron, if you wanted to sort of jump into, one of the first features that you want to demonstrate and sort of talk about why, and I'm sure that'll cause plenty of questions and discussions afterwards. But maybe it's time to sort of jump into that.
So let me just see. So, we won't get to go through all of them in today's broadcast just because of the amount of time. But I will just give a quick shout out to the folks at Autodesk. Actually just let me rant in a very long blog about all these features. So we did part 1 a couple of days ago, and part 2 it came out today. And so I'm just going to scroll through it really quick. But if you jump into part 2, it'll actually show you, if I can find it. Hey, next post. Hey, there's us. Okay. Anyways, if you find part 2, let's see if I can actually just cheat and type it in the HTML up here. There that didn't work. Right.
I think you gotta scroll down. I'll put the links to it in the description for sure in the blog post and in the video below. Yeah.
Yeah. So part 2 lists out a few more of the features. There's a bunch that I want to show today, but then of course there's a few other ones that you can read about when you get into the blog as well. And I mean, we'll start off with the kind of the big elephant in the room, and it's kind of a funny feature because if you've been using Revit for a very long time, you're not excited about it because it used to be a Revit feature and then it went away. And now after 13 years, it finally came back. And that is, so there is now a native PDF writer inside Revit, which means you don't have to constantly be battling with, do I want to use Adobe? Do I want to use Bluebeam? Do I want cute PDF or PDF995.com because it's free? Now, here's the thing. A whole lot of the Revit experts out there are like, who cares? I already have my third-party app that like does everything I want and more. And if you use one, that's totally cool. And you're gonna probably stay with your third-party app. But what's really great about the fact that they finally built it in is that you can save in your Revit file the predetermined naming for the individual sheet PDFs that you want.
Nice.
And Jeff, you work in construction, so when I'm working for an owner or for a GC downstream, one of the biggest headaches is that depending on which person on the project team printed the job, the PDFs are named differently. Is it hyphen? Is it hyphen space? Is it capitalized? Do they have the project name at the beginning? That really can't happen. And I watch very experienced architects like spend days renaming PDFs. Now, all that to say, if you have to rename PDFs, just go get Bulk Rename Utility, which has the most ridiculous UI ever, but it's amazing. It does everything incredible. Buy a license of it, do the right thing. Don't use the personal license. But all that said, the new PDF export allows you to basically predetermine how you want it to be named. You can use any of the project information fields. You can use the sheet number fields or the sheet fields. You can use the view fields. And being able to use like the current revision is really interesting to me because for the GCs or the owners who want it, you can like append a suffix of the revision. So like what I'll do is I'll do project number dash sheet number dash sheet name underscore. That way, if I need the PDF names to be exactly the same, I can just rip off everything after the underscore. But if I want the revision number appended, I can get it that way mm So,
that's awesome,
for me, it's a great setup. I really like it. And yes, Dave Plum is pointing out Pine Bush PDF from like 2007, Revit PDF Writer 4.2.
Oh my God. I can't even tell you over the past 12 years of doing the blog how many times I've responded to emails with a list of PDF, what should I use to print a PDF? And it's like I think I had a copy paste file somewhere where it's just like Bluebeam, cute PDF, Adobe, and I just went down the list of PDF printers. So that's nice. I can just say Revit now, which is fantastic. I do like the naming though, and I didn't realize that was there. So that the way that works is those are just sheet parameters that you're showing.
So you can get sheet parameters or view parameters or the actual project information. So anything loaded as a parameter in a project you can use. Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Now the one thing that a lot of people miss is because if it's on combined sheets, that grays itself out. So a lot of people are like, this is dumb. It's just like print. And I'm like, well, it does this cool thing. It does this one other neat thing, which I kind of enjoy. And that is it now will automatically do all of the sheets dependent on their sheet size.
Oh, nice.
So I haven't experimented with this extensively to see how it's deciding that. Because obviously you can put stuff off the sheet.
If it's using extents of the family, right? If you have something floating there that makes it like a 26.75 by 24 or something weird like that, right? It may throw it. Yeah, I haven't tested.
Yeah, so my early testing, I think it actually goes by the size of the title block family and not of the extents of everything, which is kind of cool. But I haven't verified that, so that part might be a little sketchy.
Awesome.
Still worlds better than where we were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I love how people are talking about which ones they use. Pine Bush, cute. I mean, Bluebeam. It is funny to see how many variations of PDF printers people have been using. So that's fantastic. I will say to Autodesk, thank you for that. But the next step is please export DWGs at the same time. Do
Agreed.
that.
Agreed. And
that in my life is a challenge and a half because the fact that it has to be a separate process makes it apparently a completely unattainable task for design teams to do.
Right, exactly. I mean, and like I said, the brutal honesty is because I happen to have the CTC batch exporter already, I'll end up keep using that because it does the PDFs and the DWGs and the NWCs all at the same time.
Exactly.
But again, it's like we're talking about the baseline, the user who can't get $200 for Bluebeam. This is for them because we spend that $200 on Revit forum explaining that like Bluebeam is not the reason the save as dialog pops up 500 times. Stop typing in the sheet name. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I haven't tested it enough, but there's a couple of good questions. Ernesto just asked, do we know if it has the live links in the PDF?
Yes, it does.
It does.
It live
Awesome.
links now the same way the live links have worked in the past. A lot of folks don't realize Revit has had live links in PDFs for years. They just only worked if you didn't rename the PDFs. So that's the crux is if you made the PDFs and then you renamed them all, you broke all the hyperlinks. But it does keep the hyperlinks. Obviously, they open to the entire sheet, which is what they've always done through Revit. So it doesn't like zoom in on the detail, but it takes you to the sheet, which is fantastic.
It's helpful though. Having bookmarks and live links is a start, right? I mean, it's definitely extremely helpful.
Absolutely.
And then a couple people asked about sorting and grouping. I'm guessing maybe they're talking about like bookmarking and how it sets it up.
Yeah, so like PyRevit, Asan did something really cool, and he's got print sheets based on an organized sheet list, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that right now, and you are still limited, to the regular. And let's just say it kind of stinks. You're limited to the regular select the sheet set. You have to go through the whole list. That part stinks, but let's give him a solid. It's version 1. I mean, it's been 13 years.
Yeah, exactly right. Is it version 1 or is it 1.1? 1.2.
Okay, it's official version 1. I don't really know how many we're gonna get, but I'm giving him a win on this one myself.
No, I agree. I think it's great, and I also think what it does do at least is it eliminates, because as much as I know people have said that they like cute PDF, but there are some of the lower end third party PDF programs aren't necessarily the greatest, to be honest. And as a, I'm not an IT guy, but if I was the IT guy at a company, some of these programs are like, I don't know if I really want these on my machines.
Well, and to be fair, this PDF writer is not built to compete with what Asana is doing at PyRevit or CTC or droots. Those are like, entire development teams building great apps. I mean, this is to eliminate the need for, no offense to them, PDF 995 or Qt PDF. Like this is just to say, hey, we can now bare bones, we can make PDFs efficiently, and that's cool.
We can do what almost every program on the planet can do, which is make a PDF natively, right? I kid. Just for everyone, you mentioned the CTC tools. I'll put a link to that because, again, as I mentioned, a pain point in my life is having to ask for PDFs, CADs, Navis files all the time instead of just getting them all at the same time. And so I'll put a link to that. So anyone who's interested in a program that lets you export all of these things basically in one shot, then you guys have the ability to do that, because I usually send that link to a lot of my design friends.
Yeah, definitely. And it's
who only send PDFs, and then you email them. Can you send the model? Can you send the CAD files? Can you send the Navis files? It's like just do it once, and we have everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the batch suite is when you see it's like $200 or something. It's like a joke. It pays for itself in like an afternoon. So the CTC batch suite definitely gets a nod.
Oh yeah,
well.
we actually had a job where we paid for it for them because it was just like, come on, if you don't want to pull the trigger, then you know what, we don't want the excuse of we don't have time to do it.
Totally. Jeff definitely wins, by the way. If you saw in the chat at the beginning, we both have toddlers getting ready to take their bath, and so I was wondering whose kiddo was going to come crashing in, which is awesome. I love it when kids crash.
Well, he just came walking by. He's actually wrapped in his bathrobe, so I don't think it's YouTube safe if he came roaming by right now, but he said hi.
Right. So the second one is a feature that is near and dear to me. I have basically accosted Harlan and Sasha 3 years running at AU because it's so important to me. Now it's not a feature for those of us who use the UI every day. This is for the programmers out there, but I think it's fantastic. So whether you program and build apps or whether you use Dynamo, you probably know, if you're a user of either of those two things, you can create sheets in the API. You can create views in the API. You can put the views on the sheet in the API. What you've received when you did that for the history of Revit, or the history of Revit having an API, is if you're using basically a custom view title, the view can go exactly where you want it. The view title goes wherever it lands, and too bad if you don't like it. So this thing right here, by the way, I just ran a Dynamo graph that placed this view on the sheet, and you probably didn't see it, but if you look over here, so just for the sake of the demo, I've got basically, I can undo it. I've got 9 sheets that don't have their plans on them yet. And so just off screen, I'm running this simple Dynamo graph. And this is the same as any app. Like I said, CTC's got one, D-Roots has one, RTV has one, I think. So if you've got a sheet creator, basically, plops the views on the sheet, that's awesome. Now somebody draws the short straw and they open 1,000 sheets and they adjust the view title. And I feel really bad about this feature because Melissa, who's watching right now, had to go through a template this week and move every single view title. So what they finally gave us in the API is a workflow, and I'm going to butcher the API terminology because I'm not a programmer, but you can now get a view title location and also set a view title location. So John Pearson at Parallax has already built nodes for this into the Rhythm package because we were just so excited to get it. But it means obviously anybody who does programming can now use this. So we're doing it right now just in a little custom way because we've been doing some quality control on some of the nodes. But while it's going to seem like a very small difference, what happens now is you can actually tell it whatever sheet I'm using as a template, find out where the viewport title is on that sheet, use that location, put it in the exact same spot. What this means for those of you who aren't doing the actual programming is additive templates are now completely viable where 2 weeks ago they weren't. So our template's 30 levels tall, 30 above ground, 3 below ground, because simply I didn't want to have to deal with going and placing 5,000 view titles. Now you can have a template that's 1 level tall and you can make an app that says hit a button, tell me how many levels you want, and build it all on the fly and have it actually be correct. So to me, it's a massive add.
Yeah. I mean, we always talk about additive versus subtractive templates creation and what, sorry, in the background, I'm trying to pull up your template episodes. That was actually episode 14, believe it or not, episode 14.
Nice.
Wild. Huh? I'm actually going to post in the chat. I'll post it in the description afterwards too. But Aaron was on last year and when we had an episode all about templates. And so if you want to dig into more what he just mentioned with the whole, additive, subtractive, and all the setup, watch that. We dug in pretty deep, but that's a great point. So you can not only can you make templates that are maybe a little leaner and you can add to them instead, right? Using these programs, but you can also generate on the fly faster sheets and all that good stuff. But what I think is interesting is those of you who aren't programmers or don't want to deal with that side of it. That means that add-ins and tools are going to be coming out, right? That are going to let you auto-generate, populate views on, generate sheets and populate the views on the sheets. So, I mean, imagine everyone out there and this is a problem for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Anyone out there who's had to create sheets, put plans, sections, details, arrange them all on the sheets, and then do that again and again and again and again manually, because I know there's plenty of you out there that are doing it. Imagine being able to say, I want these 5 views on a sheet in sequence, and then I want you to create the sheet for me, name this, and then in one click it all happens. Like mind blowing.
Room data sheets, takeoffs. I mean, things that go on sheets that we just sporadically want to put. Think about all the views that you can't put in a template. So I'm probably going to still keep the 35 levels because the time it would take an application to cartoon 1,000 sheets versus deleting 1,000 sheets, right? It's still worth it for me to keep it. But think about all the stuff you can't cartoon in a template. Interior elevations. The rooms don't exist.
Curtain
How
wall
are you going to
elevations.
elevate them? Yeah, absolutely. So all of those are now doable. And John actually has whipped up a wild Dynamo graph. He actually has another node in Rhythm that does view packing on sheets. So if you just extrapolate that now, I mean, think of all the time people spend cartooning sheets and let's just make it go away. I think it's great.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Great question. And I don't actually know the answer to this about the view line extension. The view title line extension.
That is a great question, and they also opened that up.
That's fantastic. That is awesome.
Great question. I saw that at the same time. And again, to give them credit, they did it both as you can set it and you can get it from another view. So
you can get it too.
Oh, nice. So you can absolutely use that sheet as a template, make 1,000 more, which I just think is wild.
And the fact that you can get it, if you think about this, if you have a project that was already set up that's just been butchered to shit and looks like crap, right? You can run a script and realign every single view and every single view title in one click, essentially, if you needed to.
Absolutely.
Which is fantastic. Because I know there's people out there who've spent days just moving a view and adjusting view extension lines. I know it because I've done it in the past too, because just based on locations and how people have thrown them together, right?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I saw in an architecture firm that upset me the most was a super talented architect of 25 years, a guy who could detail things I could never detail in section. And he was working on a 10-story hospital, and he was just sitting there going, new sheet, new sheet, new sheet, new sheet, because that's what he had. And I'm just like, man, like, there's got to be a high school kid we can make do that or something.
I spent 8 years in school and 2 years of interning and 7 tests and 15 years in profession, and I'm right-clicking and creating a new sheet, right?
Where's that GIF of the designer at the toilet going this way and that way? It's great.
Awesome.
Okay, a little one that we'll just call cheese because it's just fun. It's exciting. Everybody likes it. So we're in our Parallax template, right? And I've got a door placed in the model here. If you've ever seen anything about these doors, they're all shared nested components, which means that you've got to filter out the subcomponents that you don't want from your door schedule. So only reason I'm bringing this up is if you go into a door schedule, all of our components are named in such a way that, you know, the panels are PNL and the frames are FRM. Mm-hmm. Seems pretty straightforward. So I'll go to the frame one as a better example. So you would think that I could go to a door schedule and say, I only want to see the frames that are named FRM. But as you all know, you haven't been able to do that. So a user who looks at the template or looks at the door library says, well, the families are all named FRM, but it's filtered by frame material. And where I'm going with this is, until now, you've not been able to filter a schedule by family and type. Mm-hmm. So super minor thing, but I mean, it sounds like a minor thing, but now we can actually say just filter by the family name contains FRM. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not going to look any different in this particular example, but it means that we don't have to jump through all these ridiculous hoops and add in extra parameters that are doing nothing but copying the family name. I literally have a Dynamo graph that's like copy the family name into a text parameter so I can filter by the text parameter.
Yep. We do it all the time, right? I just posted a video last week or the week before of level, right? Filtering by level or walls by level. Yep. And it was just that. It's publishing it. And so that's a great point. And I think I had a discussion just last week in the BIM After Dark community about this. And somebody was asking, I think they were trying to filter a multi-category or some kind of schedule by family type. And we're like, well, I was winking because, I knew what was coming, but like, the answer to the question was, I need to filter by this family type, but I can't do it. So I need to generate a parameter to type in a value to filter by. Right. And so I'm assuming and I'm hoping that people get the magnitude of that, because it is huge, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. I mean, my particular example may not have been like the best. I'm trying to think of like what a great example would be, but it literally means, and one of the things I like about it, you brought up multi-category schedules. So there's all kinds of ways we want to sort data, in architecture or engineering, and categories don't always make it super efficient. So we use a lot of multi-category schedules for things. And it would be great to just say, here's a multi-category schedule. And if all I want is things that are from division 14, I'm going to search for family name starts with 1-4-. And now we can do that. And we, again, just don't have to jump through all these other hoops. So literally, if you can come up with a taxonomy or an organizational structure for your content or your system families or whatever, you can now make any schedule you want without any hoops to jump through, which I just think is great.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, as you mentioned in your article and when we were chatting, is that some of these things are doable now, but it's doable by workarounds, like creating 1,000 text parameters in order to filter things. And so it's nice to have the flexibility of using the actual content and categories, different parameters, instead of, because there are, I mean, in my opinion, using the text parameters is great, but you're introducing user error sometimes, right? Because that needs to be pushed there, and people need to know it exists, I think, to use it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I just had this conversation, and true to form, I was not very well received having this conversation on Reddit of all places, where
Reddit's a tough place to have a conversation about Revit to begin with, so I will give you that.
Yeah. So, and I mean, and the context of that particular conversation is there's another feature that is kind of exciting, but it wasn't super exciting to me, so I wasn't going to talk about it. But to the context of your comment, there is a new feature now where you can break down a wall into just the core layer. So if that does appeal to you, you can actually come into walls now and turn off non-core layers, and you'll see that like now everything but the metal stud disappeared. Now, for a number of reasons we won't really get into, like that's not my favorite feature. But to go back to what you just said, Jeff, the context in Revit is somebody else was like, you could do that already. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you could do it if you parted the whole model and put filters in and got rid of all your tags and had a filter for all the parts. I'm like, that's not the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's one feature that doesn't have a very easy workaround too. That's for sure.
I mean, and when we say, is something possible, like literally my response on Revit was like, look, I could do an architecture project without Revit. I could draw with crayon and I could get something built. That doesn't mean we don't need better software. Like that's a low rubric to set for what's possible.
Awesome.
So yeah, totally with you.
Great.
So on that subject, I opened a multi-category schedule a couple of minutes ago, and I'm going to jump out of, I've got a little order written on my other screen.
Yeah, go for it,
I'm going to
man.
jump out of order a bit because they've done a couple of other things that really warrant some mentioning. One is we have this schedule in our template called Component Finder, and the intent of the schedule is just to be able to find anything in the project, except to date, Component Finder has only been loadable families.
Right.
And you'll see now that as of today, this schedule is exactly what I always wanted it to be, which is everything in the project is in a single schedule. We've got system families, walls, ceilings, roofs, floors, right alongside all of our family. Like what I want is a single list of everything in use in the model. That's all I want. And now we have it. So the simple version is multi-category schedules can now schedule all of your system families as well.
You could finally make a schedule, like you said, that shows everything in your project, which is, it's blown my mind. As I've spent 5 or 6 years now on the construction side. Quantity, takeoff, and survey. Like the fact that I couldn't make a single schedule and see everything in one place blew my mind. Right. So now that we have the ability, I don't have to have. What would it have been before? It would have been multi-category. Then it would have been a wall schedule. Probably
schedule,
a
floor schedule,
right?
Schedule,
they have their
absolutely.
own schedules because they're system families, and then you'd have to, if you wanted to see them all in one place, you'd have to export them and bring them together in like Excel or something or Power BI, and then you'd see everything in one location.
I mean, yeah, and I love Assemble, don't get me wrong. Assemble's great, but there's a time I want to see it while I'm in this model because I want to check things off as I'm validating. Have I verified this thing is coded properly? And yeah, jumping between 6 schedules just stinks. You forget to add a field. Now you get to go add a field of 5 different schedules. Now it's just
one schedule, everything there. Yes, I wonder if they're going to change the construction templates because the Autodesk construction template used to have all the quantity survey schedules in it, and there's like 400 schedules. I think they'll be able to like cut it in half probably at this point. I don't know. I don't know if it still ships with Revit. Actually, I have to check. I don't even know if it still ships with Revit.
It does. It does.
Yeah, okay.
It does. I have not opened it. We're gonna have to have a whole nother call about that template.
I've used it. So in the past, I've told people to use it for the schedules. It was kind of like open it up and copy some of the schedules in because they did have some nice schedules there. But it is interesting to see that actually eliminates probably like half the schedules in that template. I bet.
It probably does. That's a really good point. Will they update that template? I doubt it because the sample file hasn't lined up coordinate-wise in 15 years, so it's probably not going to get fixed. The next one is a nod totally for architects. Hopefully there's a lot of architects watching, but one of the things that's in this schedule, of course, is curtain wall mullions. And you'll see here that I've got a tag value for my curtain wall mullions because they've finally made it so that you can now come in. I've got to lock my 3D view. I already named it, so you didn't have to watch me type. And you can now come in and do a legit tag by category and not have to do a workaround where you're tagging a material that you have to make sure you redundantly duplicate just to get a tag value on your mullions. And when I'm working with GCs, and Jeff, you probably see this as well, we get a ton of models with some really wild facades, 15 variations of mullions with different extension caps. And I'm always thinking like, man, I really wish the architects could just tag these, and they can't, and now they can. So
yeah, and I will say also, I'm surprised with how many manufacturers and curtain wall subcontractors we work with that are using model-based workflows and are using Revit. So I think even those guys will be pretty happy about this because on that front, they're doing a lot of crazy stuff because they needed dozens of types and whatnot to get done what they
Yeah.
needed. And I'm wondering if this may help them out too. So kudos to them, by the way. There's a
Yeah.
few guys out there that I've worked with that it's been great to get, curtain, like shop drawing level curtain walls has been phenomenal to see.
Yeah. Dave says my audio is funky again. I
Yeah,
need
I'm
to
starting
find
to
out
hear it
what's
again
going
too.
on.
It's that little bit of that's all right. You can tweak it if you want for a second. I'll check out some of the comments. It looks like Jose asked if we can sort materials by levels and schedules. Not really sure actually. I don't think so.
Not without some extensive workarounds.
Yeah, because the material, if you're using a material schedule, it's not recognizing a level, a hosted level of the material itself, type of thing. So yeah, it'd be
So
be
yeah,
interesting.
material schedules are kind of interesting because you can also schedule some data from the objects themselves. So
Yeah.
we might be able to do something there. We'll have to take another further look at it a little later.
Disappear model wire. I'm not sure what that means. Your audio is breaking. Some of us are architects. Yes, I know there's a lot of architects out there, guys. We're actually both architects, or at least architecturally trained and architects. So we got you. We're your people.
Exactly.
Come on.
Exactly.
Great for
but,
specs. Oh, that's a good point. Actually, great for specs. Man, spec
Yes.
writers. If your spec
Yes.
writers are using the model, I love you guys. so yes.
So I mean,
Go ahead.
so Seamus, Seamus McGrady, who was with eSpecs for a long time, and now he's with VisiSpecs. They've done some wild stuff, and I have to admit, like, I really was excited about how eSpecs worked because it was like 100% reliant on the model, which was great if you were me. It wasn't great if like you didn't have every single thing set up for keynotes and assembly codes. And the way VisiSpecs work, I'm actually really on board with it now. Like, on your first project, you're like still having to manually tag and set everything, but it's going up to the cloud and remembering your families and types and what specs they're tied to. So
oh, nice.
I'm
It's not using
there now.
it's not using master format or anything or uniformat. It's using the families and the types and their information. Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, and that sounded kind of like counterintuitive to me, but it actually works out really well.
I mean, yeah, there's
so we're gonna
it's
jump
hard to
back,
find.
though.
It's definitely hard to find a silver bullet for specs, right? With a full model based approach, just because of what specs are, right? All right, go ahead. Let's see next one.
Exactly. So there was a question about material schedules before, and materials are something that like really kind of interests me. So I am excited. They did a big fix on material takeoffs in Revit in 2022. So there are. Oh, somebody says my audio is worse than before. Jeff, does it sound weird to you?
It's still hitting that little clicking a little bit. Some kind of interference or something. Maybe unplug the Focusrite and plug it back in completely. Sometimes that helps me. I know it's a pain in the butt, but I can talk for 5 seconds while it reloads. Jose, but if you can sort manuals by materials by family and type, those instances can be sorted by levels. Why materials? Jose, it's a great point, and I think that's kind of what Aaron and I were saying, is that some materials you can pull information from the objects themselves, and that'll help you do it. But there are some materials and objects that you can't pull that information from. So Justin said he read the conversation. I've read it. I'll have to check out this Reddit conversation, I guess.
No, don't go check it out. Don't go check it out.
All right, I think it's sounding a little better right now.
All right, we'll give this a whirl. I'll dismantle it all this weekend. And see
I've had with the Focusrite as well. Sometimes where I'm on like a Teams call or something, I'll have to just quickly unplug and replug in the USB, and it's probably just some sort of interference. I mean,
that's what I just did.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm excited about this one. If any of you work in interiors or if you handle architectural finishes, the way we try to do finish schedules live, for architecture and interiors has been a giant pain in the butt, because the way we do it in our template is we have a material takeoff and it reads every material in the model. But of course, we don't want to schedule things like, metal studs and chipboard, because that stuff, it's not a finish. So how we have our template set up is once you tag the material, and I already filled them out. I meant to unfill them out so that you guys could watch me do it again. But only if there is a tag value does the material actually get scheduled. So like even if we go get like the rubber base, you'll see that it's got a tag value on it. But the issue has been for years that certain items like wall sweeps, roof fascias have not scheduled. They simply didn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we had to basically teach people to go place little generic model families that were just empty cubes so that you could assign a material. Well, they fixed this in 2022. So I've got wall sweeps in there. I've got curtain walls. I've got curtain panels. I've got wall sweeps on the outside of the building. And now everything is scheduling. And it's great because it means if you still want to do the little family workarounds so that you can get your materials filled out before the model's built, that's cool, but you don't have to anymore. And now I can go tell a team, look, put the materials in the model, tag them and give them a tag value. They will show up in the material finish legend. And I don't have to say, oh, go to this special view, drop a family there or assign a material. Because then they're just like, why don't I just go type it? It's the same thing. So,
and that's in a material schedule, right?
yeah, so technically this schedule is a material takeoff.
Right.
And of course, all we've done is, we tell it to basically sort by a special parameter in the material called what is its product type. So my bricks go together, my glazing, my metals, my wall base. And it's just filtered by, is there a material value in the tag, yes or no? So nobody really has to use the tag, but if they go in there and they put a tag value in, and yes, for Revit Robot, that means slab edges as well.
Yep, so slab edges. I was just going to say, yep, slab edges too.
It's awesome. So I got to give them a solid nod for that because we've been working around that for, literally 15, 16 years. And it's just great to know.
Yeah, and again, that's one of those subtle ones that won't make the white paper necessarily on the front page of new features, but I think has the potential of benefiting and solving a major pain point, especially like you said, interiors and some of that stuff, but in general too. Just general architecture and even structural usage, right? Like they said, slab edges and some of those sweeps and types of families.
Definitely. Let me just pull this up right here. So yeah, I'm really excited about that one. So another one that's pretty interesting, and it's along the same lines of data we could sort of get to, but not always, is obviously items have information about when they're created. So these walls are all created in phase 1. They're not demolished at all. Now, it just so happens that I also threw some walls out here that are in phase 2. But there's always been this issue of like, how do I show future work in Revit? And the answer sucks, right? Like until this week, the answer has been you stack 2 views, one on top of the other. You have to make sure that whichever view you put on top doesn't have any floors or they're all set to transparent. And you have one be the future view and you override the phase fill. This is ridiculous, right? So what they did is actually a lot more versatile than just creating, because they could have gone the easy road and they could have made a new kind of phase filter that was like show future.
Right.
And instead, what they did, I'm really excited about this, is they allowed phasing information to now be present inside visibility and graphics filters. So this is pretty neat. One of the reasons I'm excited about this is earlier this week, I was actually lamenting that there is a phase filter called none. And when you're in the none phase filter, the whole model looks totally stupid because demo shows up, existing shows up, new work and future work, like everything shows up. And I was like, why would anybody ever want to use none? I was joking. And now suddenly there's a great reason, because if you have the none feature on, you can then go in and decide, I want items created in the future phase to be 50% transparent and green and dashed lines. And if I simply activate that filter, I now have a way to show future work. Now, it requires one little bit of abstract thinking, and that is your phase still has to be in the future. You can't be in phase 1 looking at stuff that's in phase 2 because it doesn't exist yet. But you can tell your view, I want to go to phase 2 with no frame of reference related to time, and then you can handle all of your phase filtering inside VG filters, which is just phenomenal.
That is phenomenal, and it's a no-brainer, but it's also so powerful, right? It makes sense to me to have that. The one thing that I'll reiterate again that Aaron just mentioned is that you need to make sure that you do not have a phase filter set to your view, because that always governs the way they've set it up right now. So you could set up as many filters as you want in visibility graphics, but if you have one of your phase filters set, they're not going to work.
So it's kind of interesting. Like if it's on show all, it is still working.
Oh, look at
and
that.
I'm not sure. Now I think you're right.
Because show all has no overrides, right? That's probably why, right? It's I
So,
think, yeah.
well, it comes down to what your overrides are set to, but I think you're spot on. If we pick something that will force override this,
Mm-hmm.
so right now, anytime something is new in our template, it's not overridden.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so like existing right now did turn light gray, but the phase two stuff is not because it's not overridden. I think you're spot on. If you were to set it on like show new and new is overridden, that would obviously trump what we did in the filter.
Yeah. That's interesting. So it seems like, and this will probably take a little more trial and error, but it seems like it's whatever's not overridden in the phase filters area is what you have control over. So you could put a filter, but yeah, if show new is overridden, then it's only going to show new the way that you want it to.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of want to fall on my sword for this feature because when I initially heard they were going to do it this way, I was like, that's going to suck because now we've got to deal with like 9,000 extra filters instead of just having a new phase filter. And I'd rather they just do the phase filter. But now I'm like, yeah, I was wrong about that because this is going to be really great.
I could tell you, for me personally, we've been working on a lot of multi-phase projects recently, and what's helpful, and this is where right now we're using Assemble because it's very easy to do this. If we just want an overview to see how the floor plan, for example, is phased out, right? Until this existed, it's really difficult to show. If you're on phase 4 and you want to see 1, 2, 3, 4 all in different colors in the same view, right? There's a lot of playing around that has to happen for that because you're all the way in phase 4, and so being able to sort of color by phase in one view is huge, right?
Yes.
And not to mention if you're the person who has to phase a model after the fact. I'm working with a design team that's doing that right now, and they're splitting out core and shell and some phasing. And I feel for them because when you think about that process, like your QA QC could be a view that's using the phase by filter, right? That's kind of showing you what the hell is happening with the phases on this project.
Yeah, and actually, I doubt he's listening, but I mean, to give Kelly Cohn a shout out, he had an interesting use case that he was tweeting about a couple of weeks ago, which was, the problem with phase filters has always been that everything is with respect to today. And so if you have a 7-phase project, but you're in phase 7, you then can't see, like you said, any colored iteration of those 6 phases.
Right.
You can only see 6 phases that are existing,
exactly,
and then 1 phase that's new.
Yeah.
So
it makes it very complicated.
Yeah.
And not to mention like part like buildings too, if you have multi buildings. But definitely, I mean, I could see this being a time saver because let's be honest, that's how a lot of work is, right? A lot of big work is phased. It has to be. That's just the way they're built. That's the way it's funded, and that's the way it ends up being documented, right?
Absolutely. Scott Davis just asked an interesting question. He said, does this mean there's no more need for the built-in phase filters? So so this is interesting. Is there currently a need for them? Not anymore, but there's still going to be a more convenient option, I think, for a lot of people. And so I always go back to my template out of the box has about 35 filters in every view template, and every view is assigned a view template. But if you're in the first decade of your Revit use, you're probably not working in that environment. So are you about to go set up 100 view templates and thousands of
Make
views?
Make sure they're assigned to the right views and all that. Exactly. Yeah. So so it's the global catch-all, I guess, right? Where if there's no view templates, or if you have a project that doesn't have them and it's far along, applying view templates to existing views on an existing project is not necessarily a great thing to do. So maybe it is a good sort of global catch-all that exists still.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff Hansen from Autodesk just brought up a really good point in the chat. And I don't know how many of you have been using Revit for a long time as some of us have, but the phase filters do predate VG filters. And I'm foggy on when. I want to say it was version 9.1, which would be 2007 when filters came out. They were definitely not there in 8.1, and they were definitely there in 2008. So I just don't remember what the year was. But yeah, I mean, legitimately, you could theoretically bail on phase filters now.
Yeah, you'd have to rework any projects moving forward to make sure you're using view templates and people understand and use them. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, in theory, the functionality exists in both locations, right?
And now that bug is in my mind. Okay, so a couple more that I'm pretty excited about. Where's my little lists over here? Okay, so you like my little house that I made today where I just stuffed an elevator in the corner?
I know, that's a heck of an elevator for that little building there.
It's great.
I was waiting for someone to ask about the elevator family because it looks like a hell of an elevator family.
So I was doing some testing today. Yeah. Now this one is pretty cool. And I don't know how many of you actually read the blog post that I did on Autodesk's blog, but we're going to talk about that a little bit. So if you hover on this category or this component, you'll notice that its category is vertical circulation.
Yeah.
So for the first time in a long time, we're actually getting new categories in Revit. There are a bunch of them that are new. Not everybody is going to be happy because lots of people want new categories. I was actually reading today that some mechanical folks were upset because they didn't get like a mechanical controls category. And I actually feel them on that one. That one actually makes sense. But okay, so there's like a hardscape category. I don't know, there's a food service equipment category, there's medical equipment, and there is vertical transport or vertical circulation. But I'm going to throw another one out there. The new categories aren't the fun part to me. Let's see. Let's grab the elevator and open it. So what's exciting to me about the new categories, and again, like, you know, I know a lot of people online think I'm like a total suck up to Autodesk, and that's funny because everybody at Autodesk will tell you that like I throw them under the bus fairly religiously. What's very special about all of the new categories they've made is you now have control over whether or not they get cut by the views. So a lot of the libraries we sell at Parallax. So right now, if you're a customer that owns the Parallax elevator library, it's a generic model right now, and that is solely because specialty equipment was not cuttable, which meant you always saw some goofy representation of it. So we made them all generic models because at least that forces everything to cuttable. All of the new categories you get to choose on a family by family basis, which is the way it always should have been. Right now, that property only exists in the new categories. So jokingly, I'm guessing vertical circulation is going to become the new generic model.
Right.
But it's still great because
now if you change the category of vertical in the family, does that property disappear?
It does. The property does go away. I tried that already. I haven't really tried abusing it to see what kind of crazy stuff you can do there.
But that is awesome because I'm sure you're in the same boat as me where a lot of emotional support emails have to do with why does my family look like this, and it's usually the first question is, well, what category is it? And they're like, oh, it's specialty equipment. Like, well, it's not being cut, guys.
right
So at least now we know that there's an option for some of them, but it still exists on others where you need to pay attention to what category you are.
Yeah, definitely. And so right now all of those new categories are also only loadable components. And so Scott Davis just brought up an interesting point, which is there are no family templates for those families right now. You start as a basic generic model family
and flip it,
and then you can switch it, which is cool. Hardscape is one of them. We at Parallax are selfishly hoping that maybe in the future hardscape also becomes something that can work with system families, like floors or roofs. I mean, if we've talked about this before. So by the way, Lauren has converted me back to floors for site and landscape. I'm no longer on the roof train. I'm still on the roof train for interior finishes, but you have to admit when you're wrong, and her method for doing curbs on roads is better than mine was. So roofs and roof fascias are dead.
Yep.
But all that to say, we're really hoping possibly in the future that there will be a way to like make a floor object and turn it into, that new category that's been created called hardscape. And that's kind of a selfish thing because we're making all of the foreground app work on floors, to create hardscape. And so it would be awesome if like today we can call it floors and
not have to use a text parameter to tell everyone what it is, right? That's sort of where we started, right?
right, pretty much. So I mean, we're kind of excited about that. The new categories are going to be really cool. And again, if nothing else, just because it's going to make schedules that much easier. So for vertical transport, I don't have to deal with the entire generic model category anymore. So that's going to be pretty cool. Let me see. What did I skip over? So I skipped over a few other programming ones. Okay, and that's because I can't program. So,
Well,
uh,
maybe I'll bring John on to do 2022 from a programmer's perspective.
yeah, totally. I mean, and I only bring it up because there are some big deals in there for the API, and I can tell you a little bit about them. I mean, so there's a Sketch API now, and this means we can do things in programming like we can draw floors that have donut sketches. You know, they've got a hole in the middle of them, and we haven't been able to do that before. And so there's all kinds of really trashy workarounds that we've done because of it. Like, hey, let's model a floor in the API that doesn't have a hole, and then let's rip the hole out with something else. Like, this is not awesome and it's not sustainable. So we can not have to do that kind of stuff now. One of my other personal favorites, and architects, engineers alike, you've all been there. You've made a wall section, you went into your wall section view, and then you started a section detail, and then, like, Bob, project manager or whatever, rocks up and he's like, I already made a section somewhere else, we're going to use mine. But like, you finished your section detail, like it's done. So this is a neat new thing they added in, is now if the parent view is getting deleted, it will not get rid of the call out that's inside the section view. It will ask you, do you want to delete it, or do you want to convert it to its own independent view, and then it can survive.
Which is
the really neat thing about this, yeah, it's really great. But the other neat thing is you don't have to be deleting the section to do it. So if you're in here and you go to your call out, you can now tell this call out, you know what, do I want it to have a parent view of wall section? Awesome. Or do I want to just switch it to none? And now it's basically its own independent section. So the dependency on the owner view is now getting relaxed a little bit, which is great. And again, this is in the realm of, this was not a big deal.
Yeah.
But
it is.
So Allison, my wife, has been an architect for 15, 20 years, and she sits right next to me in the office, and she was working on a building the other day and asked me to remind her about this. And I'm like, yeah, go make a new call out, go to the original, window select, filter down to detail items, keynotes, tags, dimensions, copy to clipboard, go to the other. Like, this is not a conversation we should have, especially not when you're married. But I mean, it's not a conversation anybody should have, right? So it's great that we just don't have to have it anymore. So I'm excited about that one as well. Let's see, other ones that we may have missed, just breezing through here real quick. So, we have to give a nod to the revision settings. I didn't want to show them because I haven't really experimented with them, but this is a big deal. And I noticed that we had a large audience that was not all in the US. We're cowboys over here in the US, and so we just do really simple revision numbering, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's super basic stuff, but you now can have, and I have to remember how to do this, you can make new schemes and call this awesome webinar scheme. And you can start to assign things, prefixes and suffixes, and you can have different numbering sequences. So my understanding is this basically makes it so that you can now comply with some of the international standards that are being used overseas. I'm still going to throw my unsolicited opinion out there and say those standards are awful, but that's fine. You need to comply.
Yeah. I was gonna say around the same. I think that's one of those things that gets overcomplicated in my humble opinion, but it's at least we have the ability now to
Sure.
do the overcomplicated things.
Sure. And I probably just totally jacked up how I did this thing, but okay, so it did work. So this is now revision P1, and then there's a P2 and a P3, and then if you were to make another scheme, you could have it be final awesome or finale awesome, as the case may be. Now we can give it a new sequence, prefix X.
Yeah, I think where this could come in handy is those design teams that are actually using Revit throughout the construction process as well, right? Where maybe you have a set of revisions for the addendum during bid, but then you have a set of revisions during bulletins during construction, and that's nice to be able, because I know that was always a little bit of a struggle on some of the projects when I was on the architecture side, especially on school projects, where you have to meticulously document changes because of the reimbursements. And we would always struggle a little bit with, well, do we reset our revisions now that we're in construction? What do we do with the revision? So it is kind of nice to have the
Absolutely.
schemes. I could definitely see that being valuable.
Very much so. I mean, it's super valuable, especially multi-phase projects. That's always been one of my questions is I ask clients, like, are they going in for separate permits? Because if they need their own revision tracking and they both have to start at revision 1, just make a new file. Like,
Right.
It's not worth trying, because then you've got people like, hey, it's the day that we're issuing the revision. Let's detach from central and delete all the other revisions out of the model. And I'm like, okay, at that point, let's just break off the model. But so you can have your P sequence, which is phase 1, and your X sequence, which is phase 2, and that is really handy. So.
Awesome. Scott Davis keeps asking us about the shared parameters in key schedules. So I don't know if you were planning on talking about that or not, but it is. I think it is a big one, depending on how and who is using the key schedules. But
let's go rogue and do it. I was gonna not show it or not talk about it because it's one of those things that I was thinking if I tried to do it live, I was gonna wreck it. So all right, hardware schedule. Key. And I always type the name first, and then I realize it's going to reset it. So there we go. So if we make, as Jeff alluded to, you can now put shared parameters in a key schedule. So inside the Parallax door library, these are not project parameters. They're shared because we want the ability to schedule across multiple models. We also want the ability to store them in the families. So if you had things like hardware set and detail head and detail jam and whatever else you want, these are all the actual shared parameters from the doors. So I'm not going to pull any of them in. But if we were to do that, we can say, and again, it doesn't look very sexy because you have to understand that you couldn't do this 2 days ago. But if we call this awesome, and I can't even spell awesome. What's the story here? We'll call this detail 01. Okay, let's just try that again. A1 on, I don't even know my own sheet numbers, A1711. And so if we were to do that, and then we were to use a different jam, we'll just call it B1. Oh my goodness, it's happening. And then, okay, so hardware set 1 point, hardware sets are always like this, right?
Right.
So once you have that done, if we then go to our door schedule, and this is, people have been asking for this for like longer than I've been using Revit actually. So what do we call that parameter? Anyone remember?
Hardware.
There you go.
Hardware something.
There you go. Hardware schedule key. So if that's now in here, we'll move it all the way to the top. This I wish they would fix. Like, let's just keep clicking up until it gets to the top.
I know, yeah.
You can't see it, but we have to keep clicking up.
You can't drag it, you can't move it. Yeah.
They've done so good this year. I don't want to be a jerk. So if we were, to zoom in and scroll over to where those fields are, they're blank right now. There's nothing filled in. But of course, we can use the hardware schedule key, put it on awesome, which is what I name everything when I'm doing demos, and it's all filled in. So that's a huge nod. That's awesome.
It is.
Literally.
It's one of those things where I think you have to, once you pull up the right examples of key schedules that people are doing, and then realize where the limitation was, I think that's where you start to see the value of it, right? So hopefully, those of you out there who don't know what key schedules are, maybe we'll do a different session, or I'll do a little tutorial on it. But they are extremely powerful and great tools in the arsenal. So if you don't know what they are, make sure you educate yourself on those. I promise you will not regret it at all.
And actually, I've got to tell you, like I literally had forgotten about talking about that feature, but we have all of our IBC calcs for both occupancy and plumbing built into the template, but they all have to be project parameters. And I completely forgot about that. So we can swap them all now to shared, which is going to be amazing. I opened the dialog again because Thomas pointed out that I forgot to also show that you can now filter your parameters when you're working in a schedule. And this is really cool because you can say, I only want to see shared parameters. I only want to see project parameters, or I only want value types, that are lengths as an example, or family types. I love this feature. I think it's great. I caught something late when they were releasing this feature. I'm not entirely sure I'm comfortable with this yet.
Is that the ability to modify those parameters?
No, it's the ability to filter. So if you,
by type or
if
instance,
you want to,
got it.
So if you say only show me instance parameters, you're only seeing instance parameters. If you say only show me types, then you're only seeing type parameters. Here's the trouble with that. And to be fair, all the third-party apps that have the same filter, they fail in the same way. You can have two door families, and one can have panel one set to instance, and one can have panel one set to type, and we do that all the time. So then how does Revit decide which one it shows? That just makes me a little uncomfortable. And I forget what it does. I think it shows it under instance, but it's still awesome that we can
at least filter by them, right? Especially if you have a parameter heavy schedule that you're dealing with. And then maybe for folks who maybe don't fully understand the impact of why the shared parameters, like for example, any occupancy schedule are huge.
Yeah.
Maybe just explain real quick, even though I know you don't have a demo for it, but to those users, why that's such a big deal.
No, we'll do it because live stuff is the best. To do it. So if we go into like code compliance, so just as an example, I would have to place an area, which give me 1 second, real quick. It won't take long. Area above schedules, area. Code level 1. So let's just drop some area boundaries in here really quick. If you have a toddler and you don't make sound effects when you work in Revit, you're not doing it.
I actually, my new thing is I have Twin Motion open on one side, and I just put diggers and dump trucks there while I'm working, and then he just watches the diggers and dump trucks just animating on a loop while I'm working.
Nice.
He loves it. He absolutely loves it.
Cool. So yeah, super quick demo. And Jeff, thanks for recommending this. It's a great idea. So, one of the things that architects have to do a lot is occupancy calculations based on occupant load factors, and then plumbing calculations based on the occupancy of the different areas. So we have a giant schedule set up in our template, and a lot of our customers do this as well, where there is one of those schedule keys. So if we go into right here, occupant width factors. Okay, so you'll see here, oops, wrong one. That's exiting width, sorry. There we go. I clicked on the wrong one. So if you've done a code review before, this is going to look pretty familiar. We've got IBC 2012 and 2015 in here. I don't have 2018 in here yet, but this is basically your business areas are 100 square feet per person, daycares are 35 square feet per person. Now, here's the issue, right? This field right here cannot be a shared, or I'm sorry, could not be a shared parameter prior to 2022. So this does exist, and you can select an area and you can see it in Revit, but you have not been able to show it in a tag if you wanted to. And so now if we go back to that area plan that we were in, I have no idea where I put it. We can basically say, here this is, and if I pick an occupant load factor and say it's business, you'll see here that the 100 square feet is showing up. So if we wanted to now, we could actually show this in a tag, which is really cool. I've spent 15 years telling architects, it's in a schedule, you don't need it in a tag. And literally 50% of them then just copied into a giant text note because it looks better. And I got to be honest, this is not the hill I want to die on.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm like...
Yeah, but but that's exactly where I was hoping you go with it, because that is the key for anyone who's not familiar with why we're saying it's such a big deal with a shared parameter, is that being a shared parameter, it can exist now in the schedule as well as in the tag, which anyone who's tried to do this in the past, and I think I had the entire episode with Dana back in December. She went through the entire workflow of sort of making all of this connect.
Yes.
So some of it still will be unconnected, but for the most part now, you won't necessarily have to rely on Dynamo to push your occupants and data into a tag, essentially, which is great. Right. I mean, that's kudos to finally being able to do that.
It is awesome. It is awesome. And by the way, I emailed Dana after that episode, but I'm just going to say it again here because I have mad respect for anybody who will get in front of an audience and talk about code, because so many people have such strong opinions about it and they just get all up in your business. The only thing I can equate it to is an architect who is not afraid to put a plan detail up in front of a room of 30 other architects and talk about it. I'm like, hell no. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, go to any AA seminar that you get credits and stuff.
Crazy.
And it's you could tell how careful some of these guys are being.
Absolutely crazy. But there is one more. Scott Davis just brought it up, and I forgot about it. And it is actually going to change a lot about our template. So just going to show you this real quick. So we've monkeyed around with the view templates a little bit while we've been in this seminar or in this session. I never know what to call it. Seminar, webinar, whatever.
Hey, doesn't matter.
So in 2021, we got a cool feature that was called like enable this filter. And so that was like, this is the checkbox you've always had, which is this thing visible or not? Now you have the ability to have a bunch of overrides set, and then you can choose to just disable them temporarily. But what we also got in 2022 is the ability to multi-select and apply overrides at the same time. So this makes filling out filters freakishly fast. I don't know why I would override fire rated walls to be transparent, but whatever, I did it. So here's the really neat thing is you'll notice that in my floor plan, I have what's called the check parameters set to do their overrides, but the actual fire tapes aren't showing their hatch. And so when we got enable filter, I've kind of been like, well, now I can put the fire tapes in every plan and then I can just turn them off. But that's annoying because then when I want to turn them on, I got to go check all the boxes again. But now literally you can just grab things wholesale and turn them on and off. And yeah, that's just going to be, for me, life-changing.
What's funny about that one is, and I completely agree because I've struggled with large filtered lists myself in projects, is anyone who hasn't dealt with that is probably just like, wait, it didn't do that to begin with. that's one of those things where like a computer user would be like, well, I can't control select a list. Like those are those things where people who haven't been there may think like that's a feature, but it is. Before you had to do individuals and it was not fun.
Yes. Now I'm gonna plug one more third-party add-in just because we're talking about managing view filters. So having, I've been on your show a couple times. One of them was all about filters and one was about templates. So the multi-select filters to do the overrides is amazing. But let me just throw this out there. If you're looking at any of this and you're thinking, I'm going to start upgrading my template, I'm going to put a bunch of filters in, there is an app on the App Store called View Filter Manager. And I'll apologize now because as an American, I have no idea how to pronounce this gentleman's name, but it's a fantastic app. Now, it's similar to bulk rename utility in that the UI will terrify you when you see it. But if you want to put filters in tons of views and view templates and put the overrides in and get the filters in the right order relative to all the other filters, it does all of that for you. And I think the app is like $90. And I messed it up because I think I had Dynamo opened. Oh, that's 22, that's 21. So if it opens, I'll show it to you. If not, it's called View Filter Manager. I can send you a link to it. Highly recommend it. It's absolutely amazing. Revit View Filter Manager.
Awesome. Sweet. All
there
right.
It is. Let me see if I can find this UI because it's just amazing.
Yeah,
there it is.
I'll make sure.
That's what I was looking for.
Oh yeah, and I think you did show this in the view filter episode, so I'll make sure to link that as well for sure.
Yeah, probably.
But actually, that's a good point to our discussion about the phase filters. I guess with an add-in like this, maybe it is possible to reapply and set and use phase filters through the VG filters area now.
It 100% is. You could build your phase filters in one view and push it to your entire project in like it'll take like 10 minutes to run if you're doing a ton of views, but it's so worth it.
Awesome. Any last ones before we wrap up? You want to make sure you got everything you wanted to say here.
Yeah, let's just make sure we didn't miss anything. So maintain orientation is kind of cool, but like not super cool. Not like we just talk about it cool. MEP folks are like going to cut me because I said that.
Oh, the annotations, the annotation orientation or whatever it is. Yeah.
So we got more categories now. You can like do that in generic models, which is really cool. But I'm like, yeah, all right. I stop putting generic annotations in your families and we don't have a problem. Just tag everything. And then electrical people, they're like, no. And I'm like, all right, got it.
Awesome,
I don't know.
man.
So, I mean, let me just throw one last thing out there. And
Sure.
This was in part 1 of the blog for Autodesk. So this was more just a heads up. If you're the person responsible for doing the installs of Autodesk software, manage.autodesk.com, you probably already know this, especially if you're watching this blog or this webinar because you're passionate about the industry, but all of the software install steps changed this year. It works great. There were a couple of little hiccups, but they've kind of gotten through it. But so you now build the deployment on the website. You you used to go to products and services, you would download it, and then you would build the deployment. And the reason I just want to give everybody a heads up is if your IT staff just does what they've always done and they sit there for like a day and they download all the installers, they're going to go to build deployments. There's going to be no deployment tool. So you build the deployment on the website, and then it gives you something to download. And then that thing that you download then downloads your deployment for you. It works great. I've already done all of ours, but I don't want to hear like a whole bunch of users and IT folks get disenfranchised because they suddenly didn't know that the deployments were changing. And again, this is one of those things like sign up for beta, sign up for Revit Preview, and you'll find out that this stuff is happening more than 2 days after release.
That's a great point, and so I think that's a great way to wrap it up. So if this episode brought you to the edge to say, yeah, we're gonna go tomorrow and we're gonna upgrade, the deployment piece is important, but also the preview, Revit Preview / beta users, whatever it's called now. I'm pretty sure anyone can sign up for it. I don't think they limit it to anybody, and so if you are someone who is interested, I know it always seems like guys like myself and Aaron have this like inside scoop, but the reality is I think anyone can sign up for these things for the most part, and you can so if you like this kind of stuff and you want to be part of the feedback loop and see what's coming, make sure you sign up for that too. It's definitely encouraged. We don't Aaron and I don't have like golden tickets that that give us the features that others that don't. I mean, anyone who can be part of this, so make sure you guys, if you're interested, to do that. And any final words before we wrap up today, Aaron?
I'm kicking myself now because people are pointing out things I forgot. Like you can now split schedules.
I mean,
there
were a ton of definitely a ton of cool features, and like I said, there's plenty of great posts and information that lists all the 30, 40, 50 features. But I do think that this was a great way to break down some of the less sexy ones. Sexy is in air quotes. I wasn't on camera. They're sexy ones because they are valuable tools, and I hope we gave everyone not just a little list of what's new, but more of how these new things will affect your life. Because I think that's when Aaron and I talk about it. That's what we're looking at right now. We're thinking about is what's affecting the bottom line, and hopefully that's maybe enough for you guys to try it out. I could tell you, me personally, the more people that upgraded, the less versions of Revit I have on my machine, and the better off and my disk space would be. So please, if you want to upgrade, at least do it for the sake of me being able to uninstall 2016 from my freaking machine.
So I'll give credit to Melissa and John and Lauren. 16, 17, and 18 are all now dead to me. They're still on my machine because I'm having some separation anxiety.
I literally, as jobs wrap up, I like it's like this rite of passage. It's like, oh, that's high school finally finished, uninstall 16. That finally finished, uninstall 17, and it's a very happy thing in my life.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually gonna have some emotional trouble removing 16. I started Parallax Team with 2016, so it
was a solid release. I'll give you that. It was.
I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna try.
Oh man, Aaron, thank you for joining us. Where can people find you?
You can find me at parallaxteam.com or, of course, Twice Roads Fool on Twitter, Reddit, Revit Forum, social media. Disclaimer, I'm apparently a jerk online. I'm really a nice guy. Yeah, I mean, if you have any more questions about any of this stuff, I know there were a couple of cool questions in the chat that we didn't really get to elaborate on. I think Karina was asking more about the material finishes. Reach out. We'll do like a post online about it or something.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yeah, definitely. We're definitely accessible people. So I'll put all the links that we mentioned tonight in the description on YouTube here, as well as the blog post at the RevitKid.com. If you missed any of the other 52 episodes, head on over to live.bimafterdark.com, and they'll all be there, including this one tomorrow. Thank you, BIMBox, for sponsoring this episode once again. Thanks, Aaron, for joining me. This was always fun. I'm sure we'll have you back.
Thank you for having me. Always fun to be here.
Awesome, man. And then anyone who hasn't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe to here on YouTube, because like I said, I haven't checked, but maybe we got some subscribers. We're only 100 away from 40,000, which would be pretty wild to think about. All right, awesome. Thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend. Aaron, thanks for joining me again. Everyone, we'll see you soon. Be safe. Be well.
Have a good night.